Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Trisha Fladten on the podcast. I know her name is not spelled like that. It's one of those weird ones, but hey, we got it out of the way, everyone. She's coming to us from Missouri, and yeah, she's on here to just share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Trisha, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I ask this question to start off almost every time. What's the weather like today in Missouri?
Well, today it's not too bad. A little bit muggy and humid, but it's better than what it was. It was hot and humid. It was like hell here, it felt like.
Oh, we were in the hundreds last week a couple
Yeah.
times too, and it was that, and that's the only time of the year that this really ever happens. We get like 1 week of it, and then it's just slowly descending. I mean, then you get the perfect weather coming in October, and then it becomes hell for a good 5-6 months. But hey, it's the stuff we have to deal with. But before we depress everyone like we almost always do with just our weather woes, to get things started, Trisha, why don't you just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to adapt this lifestyle and how it led to where you're at right now?
It's so funny because when you reached out, I was trying to think of kind of my whole life and as far as like where I came from, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've kind of always struggled with weight and disordered eating and body image issues. Growing up, my parents got divorced when I was young, and I lived with my mom, and she was an alcoholic, drug addict, and we didn't have a lot of money, so the food was limited as far as quality. So I was never, super thin or whatever, and I struggled with it because then bullying happened. People would call me fat and all those things, and I just struggled my whole life. And then one thing that was pretty consistent was sports. I got to kind of hone my energy in on that, and that was like the one thing I had control over as far as the outcome of it. And then I got into high school and got into weightlifting, and I got really good at that. I was on like the I made like the records on the wall or whatever for weightlifting the most, and so I was like, okay, I have
Do you
control over
remember
my
your
life.
lifts from high school?
I don't. I know I was in like the 1200 club for a max of like all of them, right? Like the squats, hang clean, incline, bench, but that was pretty cool. And so then the older I got in the military, kind of focused it back, was doing a little bit of fitness stuff there. Um, Never really into the bodybuilding part of it, but I've always enjoyed working out. And then I had met my now late husband, and he was into bodybuilding and wanted to compete, never did. So then I started getting back into lifting and kind of enjoying that. And then I was in Alaska, and things kind of like, some of the obstacles that I overcame. I know we had talked about, you had mentioned something like that. Um, it kind of backtracked. I got pregnant with my one son, and then I couldn't go to the gym. I wasn't allowed to go because it became the controlling, physical, mental, abusive relationship. So then I was just always at home taking care of everybody else, and it was always everyone else, everyone else. And then in 2016, he had already passed. He passed back in 2015, but 2016, I had decided to try to compete, and um, wasn't really fully in it mentally because I was still kind of dealing with all these things internally, still kind of dealing with body image issues, dealing with disordered eating, dealing with alcoholism, and couldn't really put everything into a prep and embrace what needed to be embraced. And then it wasn't until about when I got pregnant with my twins, now it was 4.5 years ago, that I realized, okay, I got a problem. I need to kind of figure this out. And I just started working out when I was pregnant with them and focus all my attention on that. And then realized I had a problem with drinking, and then realized I had a problem with eating, or not eating, I should say. And then just kind of took that opportunity to self reflect and figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to channel it differently. All the pain of growing up that I had, we all have a story. And yeah, I just kind of appreciated what my body was able to do with my kids. And then I went full force in 2021 with my friend. She had mentioned wanting to do bodybuilding. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. I tried back in 2016, it wasn't really successful. And then I met my now coach, Toby Scholes, and his wife, Jen Scholes, and then competed in my first show of August 2021. And I'm like a super shy person in general. But the minute I got off the stage, I texted him and I said, all right, when's the next show? Like, I just felt so empowered in that moment because nobody could take that from me. I had so much taken from me my whole life, right? You know, like my independence, my womanhood, everything that you could possibly imagine. But in that moment of stepping on that stage, that was me, you know? And so I think it's just the most amazing journey and experience. And I wanted to keep going. And I did a few more shows last year and then decided to go to nationals this year. And then that's where I got my pro card.
Well, I got three things to say. First of all, thank you for your service. Second of all, sorry for your loss. And third of all, I thought being in Alaska was going to be the most depressing thing about your story, but good God, you managed to top that. So, you did something there. But yeah, I've talked to like two people from Alaska, and I just, with how dark it gets early at certain points of the
Oh,
day
yeah.
and how it stays bright for the whole time, how do you even cope with that, bodybuilding aside?
Oh, yeah. No, see, like, I liked the summers with all the daylight. It was really depressing, I will say, in the winter. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. But yeah.
It's always been one of those places where I've always wanted to go there, but I'm never gonna live there. It's
Yeah.
one of those where you're just like it would be great to visit, especially during the summertime. Yeah, and it's so massive too. I just don't people just don't
Yeah.
understand. I mean, when it's twice the size of Texas, for God's sakes. But I mean, when you were getting started in this journey too, so many people have so many myths and misconceptions about this sport, just because there's not that much general knowledge about it. But did you have any fears at all before getting into the sport, or was it one of those things where you just wanted to dive right in and see what happens?
I just wanted to dive right in and kind of I knew about it, you know, for years, and I just admired the people to go across the stage, and I just thought they were beautiful. And I've always appreciated a woman's physique, especially the more muscular, because that's what I've been. And so I felt kind of like a connection there, and I wasn't, you know, kind of the outcast in the sense of being skinny girl or whatever, or not being a skinny girl. So no, I researched it as far as kind of what it entailed, but I didn't necessarily sit there and really. I'm kind of an impulsive person. I used to be really bad impulsive, but I just wanted to go for it.
I still suffer from that impulsivity myself, so believe me,
Yeah,
I understand that. But I also love to talk genetics on this podcast because so many people
yeah,
just don't realize that two people could walk into the gym, do the same exact workouts, same
right.
nutrition, same everything. They're going to get different results, just unfortunately. But everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much when they first get started. And then everyone has that one body part that they just have to drag behind that they have to train to oblivion. What was one body part that really took off for you? And what's been one body part that you just had to drag behind?
My quads are definitely not. I don't even train those just because they get they'll get too big for that symmetry that I need. And my brothers are the same way, so that's definitely genetics in that aspect. Um, as far as you know, I need to grow my back and my shoulders. I don't dread it. I love it. I hate leg day, oddly enough. But yeah, everything else I don't mind training.
I know like 300 guests that would want to kill you right now if they heard that your quads were the thing that really
Oh,
took off you. That is by far for
yeah.
women. Like I can't even. It got to the point where I almost wanted to stop asking the question just because that was that answer every time that I was just assume.
Mine's no, mine's definitely my quads are my strong point.
Well, it's a blessing, so I will say count that as a
Yeah.
great great blessing. But this is also so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport. And you
Oh my
talked a little bit about it in your journey, yeah, like how much it changes you mentally. But the thing that I always have a problem with is that so many people just will never understand that mental difference because they only notice the physical changes because obviously they can't get inside your head. But what has this journey been like for you mentally?
mentally, every prep actually I grow a little bit in a different way. And I think again, that's why I enjoy it so much because every prep is different, but every prep I grow and I just learn something about myself. Mentally, I tell my clients that too because I've got online clients and I tell them you can go in and bust your ass in a workout or go eat the food that you need to eat. But mentally telling yourself you don't need that extra, or mentally telling yourself, okay, I got to go do the rest of my cardio when I really just wouldn't rather not. That's what sets you aside, right? Sets you apart. And it's just reminding yourself that it's all a mental game. And again, I mean, I was in the military, so I'm used to that kind of mental aspect of it as well. And I personally, for me, I think the mental part of it and the mind games or whatever you want to call it is something I kind of thrive off of anyway. Just challenging. I don't want to be complacent.
Oh my god, if you didn't like the mental mind games, I'd think that you would be the dumbest person ever for doing this lifestyle then because I'd be like, do you
But I
just
think
like
we're
the
kind
tour?
of all crazy for doing it
Oh my
anyway.
god, absolutely, absolutely. I figured that out after the first guest. I was like, okay, yeah, they're all a little crazy, but hey, at least they're not like, like blowing stuff up or doing something like that. But it's just, yeah, you cannot be. I have yet to meet one like just plain Jane, just Ned Flanders like person. And if they are out there, then they're secretly a psychopath because that's just they're doing the best acting job of all time. But just with this lifestyle too, I mean, there's so many little things that, like I mentioned to you before we started recording, that aren't really talked about. But nutrition is one thing that it is talked about, but it's not talked about to the extent that I really think it should be. What were some of the biggest nutritional changes that you've made as you've competed and done this journey?
You know, the thing about it is I've kind of always eaten my own thing anyway, and it's usually been what I've always eaten. You can ask my husband now, he's used to it. I've made my meals and then I've made my family stuff. So it wasn't necessarily a very difficult um transition. I think the off season was probably the most difficult, pushing food when I wasn't hungry at first. That was difficult, but yeah, food choices, food changes, that's not hard. In prep does get difficult whenever, you're dwindling down on the calories and carbs and you're carb cycling and doing this, but I enjoyed every bit of my prep last one. Because I enjoyed my food. So, and I figured that out. Like you kind of figure out tricks and things that help you along the way. And yeah, that's what it makes it way easier.
Have your preps gotten easier or harder as you've continued in this career?
Um, okay, so mentally, because I know what to expect going into it, a little bit easier. Physically harder, definitely, because my coach pushes me more and more every time, and he knows I can take it. And we wanted to win last time. It was my first national show, and we wanted to win, and we did.
And when you're walking on that stage, I mean, what is that moment like for you when you get to show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
That's the most rewarding feeling I think I've ever felt. But aside from becoming a mother, that is honestly the most
I was
rewarding.
gonna say, like, if your kids ever watch this and you're like, the most satisfying moment of my life was stepping on that stage, I'd be like, wait, what?
There,
I had one mom that said that, and I was like, we can redo it if you want. She's like, no, it's a joke, but so they're gonna get it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Then yeah.
no, my kids actually go hand in hand with my competing. They're pretty awesome with it. I have 5, so they keep me motivated to go.
I was gonna bring that up sooner or later that you have 5 kids and you look like that. So I was like, okay, this is just BS. Everyone, she has some secrets that she needs to share with everyone because you're just hogging it then. But we got to talk about posing because that is the one thing that, I
Yeah,
mean, most people see. I get that reaction almost every single time. Most people don't understand that is, for a lot of the guests, the hardest thing of this entire
it is
lifestyle.
workout.
What
I'm
is your
telling.
relationship with posing like?
It's a love hate. I am usually pretty good about it. This last prep, I had switched things up on how I approach my workouts as far as timing of them. So I didn't prioritize my posing as much as I probably should have. So the conditioning definitely wasn't there. My posing coach, which is Jen Scholes, it's the wife of my coach, Toby. Um, she didn't go easy on me though. She really wanted to bring in my best, and she knew I could handle it. And so we would just push each other. She would just push me every time. So it's not my most favorite thing, but I'm comfortable with it as far as what I can do, and it is the most important because you have to hold these poses and suck it in and smile and stand up straight and then lean forward and then and then you have to hold it and just it's so much.
I mean, like you were saying before, like it's for so many people, it's harder than the actual workouts. You get more of a
Mhm.
strain in that. So it's incredible that not that many people are familiar with it. But out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
My least favorite pose is probably I enjoy my back pose, but that's the one I struggle with the most. As far as trying to lean back and making sure I'm like doing all the things right to accentuate my figure. My favorite would be either my front pose or my left model pose. And my left because that's my good side with my quad and my shoulder.
How how in tune are you with angles, basically? Because I think if you're a bodybuilder, you have to be just a Jedi when it comes to angles.
You kind of learn about it as far as what your body, you start to not use a mirror just because you want to be able to feel it. And so I kind of can feel what is my angle based off of what I visualized in a mirror with my coach, if that makes sense.
Well, now we're getting to the hardcore question. So, how hard is it for you when you're on a prep to walk past a mirror and not do anything?
Oh, I do something all the time.
I was gonna say that's why I know it's the end. I was gonna say that's like if I ever meet a guest that's actually like able to walk past a mirror without getting a little pose in there when they're in prep. I don't know. Like I'd even know how I'd respond to that. So that's just
Well, especially with the leaner you get, you're like,
yeah.
oh dang. It's cool. It's amazing to watch your body transform, honestly.
What part of your physique transforms the earliest and what takes the latest to come in?
So, it's always the latest is my legs. That's always the latest. And everybody, there was a gentleman at the gym. who had mentioned, like, I just couldn't believe how long it took for your legs to come in. And it was like the week of the show, the week before the show, not peak week, but the week before peak week, I should say, they started to really come in. And then peak week, it was like bam, 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 every day they're better and better. So that's always my struggle. It is for most females, I feel like the legs for sure. But as far as first to go, it was my face this time, which is new. It wasn't that, so I was real like skeleton looking by the end. I'm like, oh my gosh. But upper body, like back leans out
You
pretty
realize
quick.
how lucky that is that your face is the first thing. Like you could be. That's. I
Yeah,
wish that because my face would always be the last thing. Oh, that's why I grow a beard then because I have a double chin even though I'm not out of shape. So it's
well,
like,
grow a beard, so
oh my god. But that's the only defense I have because like yeah, I wish my face would be the first thing to go because then that would yeah. But that's yeah, that is great because yeah, and I will say legs too for women. That is the number one area that usually comes in the latest, as well. But then I was gonna chime in and say, well, maybe it's because you don't train them, but it is what it is. But you just won your last show recently. What was that moment like when they announced your name and you realized I won?
I kind of had an inkling of it after prejudging, but I was in a state of shock. Like, okay, let me do everything to the T. My coach was like, "This is what we're doing." Bam, bam, bam. I'm like, okay, so I did it, and I had the people that I had with me, my teammates. They all helped me out, brought me food that I needed, and the whole time, just like in my head, did I just win my pro card? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I mean, I've only been doing this for 2.5 years as far as actively bodybuilding. So that was just so unreal. And then I get on stage and I realize that they're about to call my name for new IFBB Pro, and I'm like, oh my god! It was just, I mean, still, I don't. It doesn't feel real even right now. This is a title that I thought it would take me years to get to, and I'm just so proud of it, and just so grateful and humbled and all the things.
Have you had the sort of come to Jesus moment yet though, where you realize like, oh my god, I'm a pro now, so everything that I've done needs to be cranked up to like 10, and how am I gonna do this?
I mean, yeah, a little bit, 'cause he's like that too. He's like, "All right, you're a pro now, like, we gotta be on it," and, he's always pretty good, though, about keeping me in check and making sure I'm on it, but it's I've had those moments where I'm like, "Okay, now I can't slack off. I really gotta, be on it 110% for my pro debut."
I honestly think my reaction if I ever won a pro card would be me celebrating for about 15 seconds and then in my mind just going,
Yeah,
damn it.
now I can't do what I wanna
Yeah,
do.
exactly. It's like, well, there goes the next 5 years of my life, basically. So, no, but that's again, this and to sort of piggyback off that, the dedication that this sport requires. I mean, it
Yeah,
is so time consuming. I'm gonna be honest, it's a selfish sport, but I'm not gonna say it's selfish in a bad way. It's but it is selfish, no matter how many times people would maybe not want to say that. But how did you deal with the fact that like your time becomes so much more valuable when you're a competitor, and it just needs to be so down pat? And as someone who's a type B personality, that just seems so foreign to me talking to some of the guests.
yeah. Oh, no, I'm all about structure and routine, so for me, I thrive off of all
Wait,
of
an
this.
ex-military person that's all about structure and routine? Never heard of that one before.
I know, it's shocking. I grew up military too, my dad was military, so that's just kind of all I've ever known, but, as far as yeah, it is selfish. That's one thing that my coach did tell me. He warned me at the very beginning of doing it, like, it's a selfish sport. You have to put yourself first, and having 5 children, a husband, you kinda have to figure that out, and so I go to the gym at 5 AM before anybody's awake to get that done, and then, towards the end of prep, it was about the last 3 or 4 weeks when I kinda hit this wall, this last prep, and that's when my husband, he kinda swoops in and he takes over, and he's like, "We're do all the teamwork that, you can do," and, my kids, I got the oldest one who's almost 14, and then my stepson is 12, my other son 11, and then 4.5-year-old twins, and so I wanna, like, just sit down most of the time, but then my oldest would be like, "No, mom, go finish your cardio. Go." And so they kind of are pushing me to be my best and in a timely manner.
I honestly don't even think you need to work out. Just chasing them around all day should be enough of a workout for you.
Oh, trying to carry up the stairs, especially 3 to 4 weeks out, I'm like, "Oh."
Oh god, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I gotta ask, what is some of the most memorable prep brain stories that you might have? Because I collect these prep brain stories like they're a valuable thing. I just love hearing them.
Oh gosh, I don't even know, honestly. I should have thought about that prior to,
That's all right.
because I don't even know. I've had so many where one would be, like I was telling you earlier, was, the with when I was training some of my clients. I couldn't even think of the word of what the exercise was, and I just it was like bent over rows or something. I don't even remember, but I was like, "Okay, just do this," and luckily, I love all my clients. I've never been in a situation where I've had a bad client, and they've all been so understanding, and so I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. I get it. I know what you're doing. Let's just we're fine. You're okay."
My sick mind, I would have been like, I can't do the exercise unless you tell me what it is, though. You can show me what it is, but I just need to know. Like, come on, Trisha, what's going on here? So, but
Oh, my one client, she was a nurse. She goes, "Hey, I'm doing stroke patient, or I'm doing patient stroke training or whatever. You could be my patient." I'm like, "I feel like I'm having a stroke right now because I can't think."
I mean, I had one guest where I almost thought they had a stroke because they were almost starting to speak a different language, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And I told them, I was like, if you survive, I made the joke because like obviously it wasn't a stroke, but I told him if it was a stroke and you survived, I'm gonna release this footage because it's hilarious, first of all. But no, I was joking. But yeah, that is. I mean, everyone always has those days too where they wake up and they're not feeling it. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for at least admitting that, because I will say 95% of the guests admit it, but then you always have those one or two people that are like, I've always, motivated
Yeah.
no matter what. And I nod my head and I say, okay, because I invite you on the podcast. I'm not going to call you a liar, but deep down, I'm like, okay, yeah, this person's lying. But
Yeah.
how do you deal with those days when you just aren't feeling it? Because I think that's what separates someone who's a competitor between just someone in
Mhm.
the general public, because those general public people normally then won't work out or do something kind of like me. As you can tell, I've gotten very little sleep last night, so this is going to be one of those days where I'm just going to be editing and doing nothing. But how do you still function on those days? Because I'm taking notes.
The thing is, again, it just falls on the discipline and the consistency. I'm so used to my alarm going off when it does that either I wake up before it or when it goes off, I just get up and go. I don't give myself excuses. I don't play the pity party. I've had so many things happen in my life that I could have used as a crutch and played the victim. I don't do the victim mentality. I'm just like, all right, it needs to get done. How bad do you want it? I want it bad. I want to win. I use that champion kind of mentality, and I just don't give myself excuses. I think excuses are so. I don't know. I think like I'll tell my clients the same thing. They're like, "I'm just not motivated." I'm like, "Well, motivation comes and goes. It's a matter of what you want, what you're going to get from it, and are you going to get to where you want if you are sleeping in, or are you going to get to where you want if you're just at the gym, just doing it?" Because there's plenty of times I'd be driving to the gym during prep just from not sleeping well. The leaner you get, the less quality sleep you have, obviously. I'm trying to stay awake. I'm like, I don't even want to go, dreading, almost crying going up the stairs because I know I had to go do stairs for my cardio. I'm like, ugh.
That's how you know it's going to be a great day.
Yeah. And so you just power through. I don't know. I think knowing I had all the little eyes on me at home too, and my clients at the gym, I think that kind of kept me going mentally. Like, okay, I had to show up not just for myself, but for everybody else too.
Do your kids know like a couple weeks out to just like leave mom alone, just lock yourself
Yeah.
in your room basically, and just
Yeah.
wait until the monster's gone, everyone, and then she'll come back and we'll be like, okay, we can be a family again. But for now, we're just no. That's because like I was enough of a as you can tell just from my ADD, like I was enough of a spaz growing up that like, good God, if one of my parents competed, I probably would have been murdered. So that there's a positive to that at least. But one of the things that I found so fascinating when I really started to ask this question to guests is so many guests don't prefer that show day look. If you were to ask them like what's their favorite look, some people prefer like 4 weeks or 6 weeks out or even 4 weeks after. Where do you fall on that? Because I was shocked because before I did this, I just assumed that like everyone thought that they like look their best when they're on stage, but a lot of people are like, no, I actually prefer the little bit more of a fuller look, maybe like at 4 weeks out or 4 weeks after. Which one of those three do you think you prefer the most look wise?
I definitely don't like being that lean.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable. I don't like. I mean, my husband says the same thing. He prefers more meat on my bones.
I
Um,
love hugging a skeleton, everyone.
just sucking up. But I think right now I'm about 4 weeks post show. I'm pretty comfortable with my body. I feel good. I'm thriving. My hormones are getting balanced out, and I just know carrying the more fat, I feel better. And so, I would say definitely either 4 to 6 weeks before show or 4 to 6 weeks after. I enjoy a lot more than actual show day.
Well, I'm just
I
gonna.
like the look, how pretty everybody looks, but
Well, thank God you never competed in Alaska, because we have some people up here in Minnesota that are prepping for shows when it's negative 20 degrees outside, and I don't know how they can.
mm,
I like, yeah, more power to them, but that's just
yeah,
we're talking extremes there. There is that, but I mean, another thing that is post show blues that isn't talked about as much as it should, because a lot of people just don't assume how hard it is for people to put that weight on, especially after you've gotten down to such a lean look. And a lot of people, first of all, don't even understand that that's a thing. They just think, oh, these people just must be in shape 24/7. And then, I mean, I don't think there's anything more harmful for a bodybuilder than asking them if they even compete anymore when they're in their off season. Just anyone, if you want to really insult these people, I got so much stuff. I got so much material. Like I could just do a stand up routine of just insulting bodybuilders, and it would be pretty well. But how do you deal with post show blues, and has it gotten easier as you've
Yeah,
done more and more of them?
it's gotten easier, and I think because I give myself goals. Me and my coach always have a plan for after, so I know what I'm working toward, and I'm not just falling off and derailing, right? And so my first show, I did have the blues for sure, and I figured out that's what it was because I was like eating everything, all the weight came back on, and I'm like, what in the world? And I just felt super bloated and uncomfortable. Um, and I didn't like what I looked like, but then I had a game plan and kind of like push out of it. Last few were okay. This one's been great. I've had, a really great rebound. I enjoy my food when I'm out of season. I play around, mix up my food, and just really enjoy it. So I stay on plan, and it doesn't bother me. I take my first couple days of kind of doing my thing with food, but after that, I'm right on it. So, and knowing I have a goal and it's a bigger goal this time, I think is kind of a motivating factor for me to be on it 110%.
I hate to give this out because I've only mentioned it 4 times on the podcast, but we're talking about insulting bodybuilders. I have to give out the greatest insult. People, this is what you have to do if you ever want to really get under their skin. You see one of them working out, you walk up behind them, you just whisper in their ear. They don't even have to know you're there. You just whisper in their ear, looking a little small today, and you
I
turn
was
around. No, and you turn around and you walk away without even getting their response. You just don't
yeah,
even pretend. So they might not even see you. They might not even say. You will mess them up for at least the day. Like you will just
either
like,
small or skinny.
oh
Being
yeah,
called
I mean
skinny.
that is the worst thing that you can ever do. So
Yeah.
again, with great power comes great responsibility. Only use this if you really need to. So I don't recommend it, but if it is
Noted.
out there,
I will.
absolutely, and again, if you just want to, I don't get like you could honestly just win one of these shows if you were the least muscular looking person there. If you just went up and whispered that to every competitor, like they'd just be so messed up that their posing would be off, and they'd just be like, "Do I?" So again, but that is just and getting a little bit into that, digging a little bit more. I mean, body dysmorphia, we gotta talk about it. I mean, you're once you get into this lifestyle, you sort of sign a deal with the devil where you're never gonna be big enough, you're never gonna be good enough. I find it hilarious at times, just because I talk to some of the most in shape people on the planet, and you think that they'd have it all together with their body and positivity, but you're just like, because I was the biggest idiot of all time when I was just coming out of high school. Where I thought, hey, if I got really, really jacked, like I would probably never like feel bad about my body ever. And that's one of the dumbest things in hindsight. That's probably one of the dumbest things I've ever thought in my entire life. But that's every gym bro I think that's ever existed
Yep.
first getting started off. But how do you deal with the whole body dysmorphia?
Again, it's kind of like with the post-show blues. You just adapt. Like you start to get used to it. You know what you have to do as far as training and eating, and I think that's where people kind of mess it up sometimes. Is not training hard enough, not eating enough, not doing enough. But you know, it is hard. I've seen these pro girls on the stage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll never be good enough. But at the same time, I never thought I would be good enough for a national stage, and then here I am. So I think it's just a matter. Again, it's still the mental aspect of it. It transfers over from prep into off season, and you just gotta remind yourself that you gotta do what you gotta do, and just grind on. I guess it is what it is, and I think that's come with time of doing it too. Is I've just learned to adapt, but it's very real. Body dysmorphia is very, very real.
I mean, yeah, I had Andrea Shaw on and she was talking about that. And it's like, you just won 3 Olympias and you're talking to me about body. It's like, so like,
Yeah,
it's like, that just goes to prove anyone. I mean, it's like everyone struggles with that, at least to some extent. But let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. If you were to walk down the street dressed the way you are right now, you are going to draw people's attention. Just I compare it to
yeah,
being like a mini celeb. Well, first of all, there's nothing to do in Missouri, so like if they saw a hay bale, rolling down the street, everyone would be entertained by it. But being that you look like that, I mean, that's even worse than that. But
yeah.
it's so you are just going to draw people's attention. What has that been like, and has it gotten easier for you as you've maybe gotten more used to it to still deal with that, or is it still one of those things where you're just like, okay, this is kind of weird?
So it's super weird. This last prep was insane. I've never had it like this, where I've had people come up to me, ask me how much I bench, ask me. I mean, I've never had it like that
That's
ever.
when you got
So
to play the idiot and just say, I've never worked out a day in my life.
I don't work out. What are you talking about? People ask me to work out, and I'm like, I dibble dabble in it, a little bit
I eat McDonald's every day, everyone.
here.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's it's not something that I'm used to. And I do get stares. And when we were in Vegas, actually after the show, I got more stares there than even here, which is odd to me considering we're in Vegas and Fremont Street. I had somebody call me a freak. My mom, she snapped at him, called them out, which was pretty funny. I had a guy ask to touch my shoulder, asked what my shoulder workout was. My husband's like, "You want to poke her?" And then he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and walks off. I'm like,
I will say this though, as creepy as that was, at least they ask. Because I've heard so many stories where they don't ask, and it's like at least they give them credit for that. But again, everyone, yeah, just don't do that. Everyone, I mean, just
"It's
don't.
so weird."
Yeah,
Yeah,
but like at least they asked. So I will give them, as low as it still was, I will give them just a tad bit of credit for that at least. But yeah, I just those reactions, I mean, let's be honest. When I was in college and I was in a lot better shape than I am right now, the girls would come up and feel their arms. But it was the college years, so I'd pump it up
yeah,
for them a little bit. It's the college years are a little bit different, than any other time period. So that's a whole
yeah,
different story. But yeah, it is fascinating how sometimes people just think that you're just like a human art exhibit and like they can just yeah, it's
yeah.
weird.
Well, especially being lean, you really get the stares. And I registered my kids for school, and my son had football, and he goes, I guess his friends asked him,
That poor kid.
"How was your mom's?" No, he's proud of it. He's so proud of
Oh
it.
no,
So
I'm just saying that probably the stuff that people say to him because I know because we had a kid that has his mom was kind of in shape too, and just
yeah.
the taunting that he would get, I was like, oh, that poor guy.
Oh no, they were like, "How's your mom so jacked?" And he's like, "She's a professional bodybuilder." And he's like, "Mom, I'm proud of that." And so to me, that's so cool. I'm like, "You're not embarrassed?" He said, "No, it was cool." So all of his friends stare because again, they're 13, 14, and
So this is a funny story. So one of the coaches would he was friends with the mom and he asked her ahead of time if he could use this one for her. So he wasn't the best at tackling. And then the coach said one time, this was like in eighth grade, he goes, well, maybe we get your mom to come out here and tackle. I bet you do a better job than you. And I was just like, oh, that kid's soul was just destroyed right there. So
oh, for sure. Oh
that
my
kid
god,
was that. I mean, I have my 10-year high school reunion coming up in this next month, and I want to see if that kid's still alive first of all, and see
oh,
if he hasn't. That
that
might that might be the downhill. It all went downhill for him. So I don't know. You can't really come back from that one. But I mean, that is and well, first of all, what was your friends and family's reaction like, other than like your immediate family who kind of like you said you had that your husband had bodybuilded before, but what was your extended family's reaction like when you announced I'm like, hey, I want to give this a try?
Um, I don't think that they thought I was gonna like follow through with it. I don't think it was, they didn't really understand what bodybuilding was necessarily. So, um, yeah, they were like, okay, cool. That sounds fun. They didn't really know what entailed, like I said. So I don't think it really hit home for them.
I would honestly, if someone I knew, I'd tell them my own story and be like, okay, I'll show up if you compete, but like, I'm not expecting you to finish that. And then if they did finish, I'd be like, okay, you're a better person than me. Congratulations.
I think
Um,
that maybe I wouldn't finish. I think that's probably what it was.
well, yeah. And that's just, I mean, again, there's a lot of stories I've heard that are somewhat similar to mine where people just go into it without realizing just how much you have to sacrifice and
Oh,
how much you have to, give in mentally. But how long have you been doing personal training? And on top of that, what is your favorite thing about being a personal trainer? And what was your least favorite thing about being a personal trainer?
right now, the least favorite thing is just the traveling back and forth and gas being so expensive. Or I would say, or it's, when my clients don't follow everything that I try to help them out with. And I get it, but I'm like, come on. I became
Well, just
actually,
tell them, do you see what she looks like? Follow her damn routine, for Christ's sake.
well, and then, so I think I started with at Elite here about 2 years ago, which is my coach's gym. So I worked through all that through him. But before that, I was working at a different elite in Raymore around here, and that was back in after my 2019. So a few years. I've always been in, like I said, I've always been in fitness. Kind of knew a lot about it anyway. So, um, but I love it. I love all my clients. I love meeting the people. I love hearing their stories. I love seeing them push. They're bigger motivators to me than anything, and I don't think they ever realize that how much they motivate me every day I step in there. And there's days where they don't want to be there, and I can see it, and they just give it their all, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, the transformations for me would probably be the biggest thing that I would take from it as a personal trainer. But a question that I just came up with like 4 podcasts ago, it shows how good I am at this. That took me over 5 years to come up with something like this. I was just randomly doing a podcast, and then just like a light bulb finally went off. But let's say that during a bodybuilding show they had a talent portion, kind of like they do with beauty pageants, where you have to do a certain talent. What would your
Oh,
talent? What would your talent be?
I don't even have any talents. I don't even
Singing,
know.
playing an instrument, doing
N-
something? No.
No, I don't do any of that. No, never was into music. Never. I was only like sports kind of girl. I was not anything
You could
else.
do a military routine or something like that. I don't know, maybe.
I'll just do like I'll just do all marching. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Hey, hey, that is a talent. Most
Or
people, you know.
okay, maybe cooking. I was thinking about becoming a chef, so there we go. Just
That
cook
would be
something.
hilarious to see someone have to move out a stove to the center of the stage and then plug it in and then have you just cook something, maybe give it to the
Yeah.
judges and stuff. Hey, I mean, that would be, hey, that's entertainment value right there. But okay, so one of the biggest misconceptions that people that are in really good shape have is that people just assume that they can just use them to help them like move stuff and do stuff. How much crap of
Yeah.
that do you get? Especially because I was just when I said move the stove out stage, I immediately thought of like, okay, like I remember when I was in shape, like basically every other weekend I get asked to help people move.
No, and it's jokes from my own husband. He'll be like, "You what? You can't pick that up? Aren't you a bodybuilder? What's all this for anyway?" Especially okay, the funny one is it's like when I'm 2 weeks out. Pick that up. No, I can't. Like take the kids upstairs. Can't. Well, you're a bodybuilder. It okay. Nope. Mm-mm. Or my dad will give me crap about it too. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, that it was shocking for me too because I was before I started doing this, I was of the general opinion like, oh yeah, they must just be able to just do all that stuff. But then they don't realize as you get leaned down, it just becomes harder and harder. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Trisha, we made a decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Um, I'm still new to it, so it's hard to say as far as what probably somebody else who's more seasoned than me would change. But maybe, and it's hard to say too because everybody's just different. The subjectiveness of the sport, like everybody, just kind of a fair uh, view of it all. But again, we're all human. We all have different points of view. We all have different things we're looking for. So that's the only thing that I could think of off the top of my
Well,
head.
that and prize money too. I mean, that's the
Oh yeah, for
well,
sure.
that's the easy answer though. Like that's I honestly should start the question with saying other than prize money because like that's
Right.
just such an easy one to go to where it's like yeah obviously that should definitely be one as well. But as you get more and more into the sport, what are some things that you've discovered about yourself just as a person that you think you wouldn't have had that you wouldn't have to see my tongue tied and twisted moment, everyone. We almost made it, but would have been would have okay. I just gotta take 5, 4, 3. This is going on the blooper reel too, so at least the blooper reel will be extended because of this podcast. But 3, 2, 1. What are some things that you've learned about yourself that you don't think you would have learned had you not gotten into bodybuilding?
That I can do what I set my mind to. I can do more, or that I should say, blah, blah, blah.
It's
that
contagious, I will
I'm
say.
a lot. No, that I'm capable of way more than what I realize. I think that's been an amazing thing to learn through this whole process is that I would never think that I could do something that hard, that I can do hard shit, right? Or that I could go win a pro card and then go step on a pro stage with some of these women that I've followed on social media and I idolize. So I just think that's been the biggest thing for me from it all is just finding myself through it too. Like I had all these years of just taking care of everybody else. I became a mom at 19. So I've just only ever known to take care of everybody else that and I got to a point in my life where like, who am I? Right. I had gone to school to be a surge tech, had to drop out of that because I got pregnant with my twins and it wasn't, lining up right. Um, and so I was just kind of lost. And this is the one thing that I've found through every single prep that I've become more and more aware of who I am as a person. And it's been amazing. And I think I can finally put myself into this and put myself first and prioritize myself along with still being a good mom. I can still be a good mom and be good at something and put everything I need to into this, if that makes sense. I don't know if that
Yeah. No,
even
it makes total sense. That's it just again the willpower that gives you to and just realizing that like yeah I have always had the imagination at least myself that like if you can do a prep you can really do anything just because it takes so much out of you. But the thing with Instagram that I find so fascinating is that it's benefited the sport so much but also I would be that person where I would be checking on people that, like, if I knew that I was competing against them and trying to compare. Have you ever fell into that category, or are you someone who's able to not do that? Because that's another reason why if I competed, I'd be like, okay, that guy just took a really good angle of a shot, so I shouldn't even step on that stage then, because like I'm not even gonna look as good as he is.
I had that a lot. I tried not to do it this last prep just because I knew everybody was going to be looking amazing. And then I did see a few, and that's when I got into my own head. Like, I don't even deserve to be there. I don't deserve, I'm not good enough. And I think that's why Backstage was by far the best show I'd ever been at, as far as how excited I was and how comfortable I felt. But all the women, I just, I remember stepping back and just looking at everybody and thinking how everybody looked so amazing, so beautiful. And I knew what I had to do to get to that point. So to look at everybody else and see that they did the same exact thing, or maybe even harder, it was just such an incredible moment and opportunity that I was just kind of relishing in at that point. That regardless of what it ended up at that, I felt great. And it was just amazing to see all these women, and regardless of, they beat me or not.
Yeah. And again, the one thing that shocked me the most is just how friendly most of these competitors are to each other. Where it's rare in a lot of sports, just how much they generally care about each other and really get along. But what's one misconception that you would like to dispel more than any other about bodybuilding?
Um, Gosh, I don't. I see people talking about the disordered eating with it. I'm like, if I anything, I eat way more than
Yeah.
a lot of men, and I eat good, and it's just a lot that people say that it's like it's just so unhealthy and this and that. And granted, is it the healthiest way to get to stage lean? No, but we all know too, it's not sustainable year round. So that's why but again, people don't realize that either. People think you're just eating nothing and doing all these excessive amounts of cardio, but those are things that you kind of know going into it as far as what it entails, and you prepare yourself. And but yeah, it's hard because people always have their opinion on it and think that they know everything, and it's just so much fun.
Well, speaking of the devil, what is your relationship like with cardio?
I don't mind it until this last time whenever my coach put in the stair stepper and I hadn't and that was awful. And mind you, my cardio is usually like incorporated with treadmill and lunges. So I'm used to it being kind of crappy, but the stair stepper, that's the devil. That mm, nope.
What is one thing, if you were able to go back and talk to yourself before you started competing or even training for bodybuilding, what would be the best piece of advice that you would have given the younger version of yourself?
Well, I wish I would have started sooner, but I would have told myself like, go 110%, never let off the gas. Um, I don't think I ever really have actually though since I started. Was just I've always kind of given it my all. But I think I would have told myself as far as bodybuilding, like it's going to be hard, and if you want to succeed at life, you know, you gotta challenge yourself. It's got to be hard. It's got to be uncomfortable, because where's the fun in that? Where's the change and the growth in that if everything's just easy? And
It would be
so
fun for a while, but then it would get boring. I'll say after a
it
while.
is,
But
it is boring because I mean, if you don't challenge yourself and you're not, where's the fun in that? Just staying complacent. That's a lot of people's problems.
yeah, well, and when it comes to coaching too, what in your opinion makes a coach a good coach? Because I found, just talking to so many guests, that there are so many more bad coaches than there are good coaches. Just because I think everyone thinks that they can be a coach now, but it's hard for a lot of people to find that coach that really gels with them and really sticks well. But in your own personal case, what makes a coach a good coach? Because it does differ from person to person.
Oh, for sure. So me and my coach, we vibe really well. I see him every day at the gym, and he's become family. Him and his wife. Um, for him, he's always put my health as a priority. And I think that kind of, and he always explains things too. So why are we doing this? Because or this is going to be the plan here. And then he also, I'm super OCD, and
Shocker.
I know, right? So I like to plan and prepare, and he knows that about me. So he always gets me my off-season plans even before show day because he knows that. And um I think what makes him just a good coach, like I said, is prioritizing my health, but also being not just a boss or just like a coach, but also being a friend, somebody that I can hey, like this is going on. What do you think? And is super informative, but also a real person and not just, I'm here to take your money kind of thing, which I feel like a lot of coaches are like that nowadays that just only care about the money and just give them whatever plans and then leave them off to do whatever. No, it's like we're going to check in 3 times a week. You're going to tell me how you feel every single day. Tell me what your body's doing. Very in tune with his competitors is how he is, my coaches.
Yeah, and then I've heard of some of the other coaches where they literally just send you a plan and just basically tell you to F off until you get ready for the show. And yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, when I hear that, it's so shocking to me because I've had just what I've had this whole time, and it's very hands-on, very in tune, very aware.
When we do have you on a year from now, because I'd love to have you back on in a year to give us an update on what you've been up to. Where would you like to
Yeah.
be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
So in a year, I will probably be back in prep for my pro debut. Not sure where yet. We haven't picked out a show, but that's kind of the goal is to give myself a year of off season. But as far as, everyday life, I still want to personal train and, get more clients and meet more people and expand that business.
Yep, that is awesome. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Well, first and foremost, my kids for sure, and my husband, my coach, Toby Scholes and Jen Scholes, and then some of my other teammates who had kind of been with me the entire prep and even were out there in Vegas with me with Elijah Broadus and Jensen Broadus. She was 9 months pregnant and flew out there to be with me. That's the kind of support system I have. And
What a
then
psychopath, I gotta say. First of all, it's like you have the ultimate excuse in the world to not show up, being 9 months pregnant, and you don't pull the trigger on that.
she was like so excited to be there too. She's been amazing. And then, obviously my dad and my mom and my brother Kevin, he's like my best friend. So he's always there. And all my friends too have always been super supportive and pushing me
Please
and
tell me Kevin joked, because if my sister was more jacked than me, I don't know how I could survive. Like it would have, like you don't realize how much like that would have to motivate me. Like that might be the only time where I actually would complete a prep without eating stuff, is like if I had a family member that was like more jacked than me, because I was like, okay, this ends now.
no, Kevin, I'm definitely more Jack than him, but he's like, he is my biggest fan.
Yeah.
He went to one of my shows and I could hear him in the audience. Only him. He's my best friend. So
And that is so important too, just having that support, because I've heard so many stories where they don't have that family support and it just becomes,
oh yeah.
so much harder. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Trisha enough for coming on and sharing her story with us. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. Buyer beware, you will be inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Trisha, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. It was an absolute delight to talk to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.